make sure that you're filling your own cup of self-worth by having a well-balanced life so that you're not needing to excessively get your self-worth and your personal self-value out of having your clients have certain outcomes.
Are you looking for simplified ways to grow your business? Do you struggle with knowing where to focus your energy for the best return? Or are you loving your business success and looking for ways to stay ahead of the pack? Just for inspiration and innovative techniques. If you've answered yes to any of these, keep listening, my friend. Hi, I'm Amita from Holistic Vision. As a business owner, I do understand that we wear multiple hats, sometimes all at the same time. Occasionally, this leads to feelings of overwhelm and stress, of being reactive instead of proactive. But when you're equipped with the right business strategies, marketing insights, and mindset, it leads to a sense of accomplishment. It also ensures that your confidence in your skills grows. Plus, there's real power in the fact that you are creating a lifestyle that you love whilst going out there and helping others. So, if you're ready, tune in every Wednesday by hitting that subscribe button right now. Don't forget to like and share this podcast with 2 to 3 friends in your network who could really get value from the information that we share. A passionate advocate for placing spirit at the center of health and wellness, Trina has spent over 26 years running her spiritual healing practice in Melbourne, Australia. A Bachelor of Health Science with honors in traditional Chinese medicine, coupled with Trina's psychic ability to communicate with spirit, has given Trina a deep understanding of the broader spiritual underpinnings of the human body and psyche. Trina works as a medical intuitive, psychic spiritual healer, and educator to catalyze transformation in the body on all levels: biochemical, mental, emotional, and psychological. Trina also runs a membership-based program, the Spiritual Healing Sanctuary. It is Trina's mission to use her expertise to educate the world on the science of spiritual healing, advocating for a truly holistic approach to medicine to focus on exceptional outcomes for clients. Trina's message is simple. Your spirit is a powerful agent of change. Be the gift to self and others the world needs. Body, mind, and soul. Welcome, Trina. I am really intrigued by having you here today.
Yeah.
Reading your bio and getting to know you a little bit. There's just so many questions that come up for me.
Brilliant. Ask away.
For me, what stood out when I was reading a bit about you was the fact that you've got such a great base with what you studied. So going from traditional Chinese medicine and then tapping into that psychic abilities. How did that all come up for you?
Yeah, well, it definitely wasn't a straightforward journey. And I felt like it was a bit of a reluctant journey as well, because I always considered myself to be a very straight-laced kind of math science person who was an intellectual, right?
Yeah.
And I started studying Chinese medicine purely because I'd had some health concerns my whole entire life that had evaded any type of relief, any type of long-term relief from Western medicine.
Mm.
And I'd reached a point in my early 20s where I had a friend that suggested Chinese medicine. I went and got some Chinese medicine treatment, and my symptoms started to reduce, symptoms that had not been able to be touched in other ways. And it was like magic to me, to be honest. And then I started to explore more. And then I decided to go and study Chinese medicine because I was in a corporate job and I just wasn't very happy, and I was unwell a lot and I was struggling.
Hmm.
And so I went back to university when I was 25 to study Chinese medicine. And when I would touch acupuncture points on people's bodies, I would start to just download all this information about them that just kind of came out of nowhere. And I always knew that my dad's grandma was a psychic, and that she used to read tea leaves, and that she had this room out the back of her house where she would do that. And also, my nana and my parents would have these whispered conversations about spiritual phenomenon.
Yeah.
Um, I had always been able to see color and see all sorts of things, but I'd completely pushed that part of myself away. And then I had this one experience where I jumped in my car and something said to me, lock the passenger side door. And that was before there were any, central locking. And as my mind was arguing with this voice in my head, my body just of its own accord leaned over and locked the passenger side door. I stopped at an intersection, and a guy came out of the bushes out of nowhere and tried to open the passenger side door of my car. And that was one of the first really, I never really thought about it, though, to tell you the truth, Amita. I would have these experiences, but I never
Hmm.
really thought about them. They were just experiences that I had. And so when I started studying Chinese medicine, that was when these things started to come together. And I very carefully and as respectfully as I could would feed this information back to people to kind of test my accuracy. And my
Yeah.
accuracy was really clear.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and my own sort of form of practice developed from there.
Yeah.
So ill health, I would say, that was my main motivator, being frustrated with the kind of well-being that I could achieve through other means alone.
Yeah. And that's such a common trend. I found that that was part of my journey as well into becoming a naturopath and nutritionist all those years ago. And, I speak to so many healthcare practitioners, especially healthcare practitioners in natural medicine. And it's that continuous journey of their own health that draws them to go this way, because they either haven't been able to get those answers from your conventional medicine
Mm,
pathways,
yeah.
and not getting the answers that they're looking for and the support that they feel they need to actually recover and heal their bodies. So it's always interesting to understand, yeah, what drove you, to do that. You said that as you started using and learning about acupuncture, using the needles, you started to feel that connection and feeding back that information to clients. What does that feel like for you from a perspective of validating what you've always felt there but never really explored?
Well, my whole sense of self had to change.
Mm.
I felt like that my clients were my greatest teacher, because my clients showed me the practitioner that I could be. I had, right from the very moment that I started practicing, people come with complicated disease processes, complicated unwellness inside of them on multi systems, multi levels. And I had to really step up to be able to meet that. And I needed more than what my conventional senses could offer me to do that. And so as I started to become aware of my psychic ability, there was a real clash inside of me because it didn't fit my self-concept. I didn't want to be psychic. I never
Mm.
saw psychic. I
Yeah.
felt ashamed and embarrassed about being psychic. It took me a long time to really integrate that part of myself into a place of comfort. Yeah.
Mm. And, mm, going forward now, 26 years doing this and working with that, how do you feel now?
So now I have so much evidence that my medicine works that I feel comfortable with it.
Mm.
Um, I do still feel frustrated that the spiritual element is left out of health and well-being and is considered to be woohoo and something that is exogenous from the body when it
Yeah,
isn't.
yeah.
And I find that very frustrating, and I feel like that really demeans the type of medicine that I practice. But
Mm.
I'm also, and I know that I'm many people's best kept secret, right? So I had to kind of really embrace that from a marketing perspective,
Yeah.
to be honest, but because people would not necessarily want to say that they saw a spiritual healer, because people make all sorts of judgments about that, about the nature and the character of who and what they are.
Yes.
And yeah, so now I'm very comfortable with it. I still encounter a certain level of sometimes almost discrimination, I think. But
Mm.
I feel like in many ways, like you're saying that, you were a practicing naturopath and nutritionist, that there is a certain, we live in a world that is very much based on mind and rationality, and if something doesn't fit a conventional box, then it isn't given any worth. It's given limited worth and value, right?
Yeah.
And that can be very difficult for a person who's trying to find their own authenticity in their practice,
Mm.
because there's an alchemy that happens between you and a client comes to you for a reason,
Mm.
because there is a certain between who and what you are as a person, where you've been, what you've been through, and what their needs are. And I think that in our world, I certainly am not disparaging in any way when it comes to Western medicine. I still use it's just that there is a certain push that you know, if there is a medicine that isn't really understood enough and doesn't kind of fit the box enough, then its integrity can be called into question. And so I sort of find that still happens to me. But I have, one of my best friends is a naturopath. She finds the same thing. I don't think it's isolated to me as a spiritual healer. It's just a
Mm.
little bit more obvious.
That's true. I think, over the last 20 years, there's been such um, an intense growth within the natural healthcare industry. And there's definitely been more light shone on the different health practitioners under that umbrella, which is fantastic, because I think it's allowed more conversation to occur and people to start becoming more comfortable with both the body, mind, and spirit aspects of healthcare. But like you say, you can still come up with people not understanding it or not accepting it, and not
Yeah,
believing in it either. And it's true. I think we'll always get that, but I think how we frame it for people can help.
absolutely.
You mentioned that you were the world's best kept secret, but you've been using your marketing to get out there. For you, as a business that's been around now for, over 2 decades, what has worked for you with marketing?
Well, my word of mouth. I built my business on word of mouth. It took a long time. in the very beginning. That's one thing that's worked for me really well. And so I have really needed to, my clients are the ones that, like someone will say to me, oh, I came to see you because I was at the hairdresser's and I was speaking to the hairdresser about some health concerns that I was having, and this lady her to find me in mysterious ways. I'm just going to pause for a second because I think that. So, yeah, I felt like I was people's best kept secret. And I put this sign up in my clinic within the first couple of years that I started working, where I was sort of still just getting a client here and there trickle through my door. And I can't remember exactly what it said, but it said something like, if you really enjoy seeing me as a practitioner, then the way for me to remain a practitioner and be able to do this for a job is for you to tell your friends and family about it.
Yeah.
And so I sort of started to really tap into that. And
Mm.
that was before there were things like email marketing and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
And, those blatant asking for that referral, sometimes I know when I speak to business owners, they're scared to do that. They think that they're being too pushy or too salesy. But if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it.
That's
And
right.
I think it's important that we realize that we are here. We've got a message that we want to share. We've got something that we need to get out there. And you need to be able to go out there and let people know that you exist, and that you want to help more people, just like the clients that you're already seeing. And yeah, you're right. It does work really well.
And there is always a fear, I find, in sales, right? That's why I say, I was saying to you, oh, wow, I'm so fascinated by the fact that you were a natural health, a health
Yeah.
practitioner, and then you've moved over into marketing, because I find marketing the most scariest part of my job, because it's not my area of confidence, right? It's not my area of expertise. What I'm really good at is being a spiritual healer, and that's where my passion lies.
Yes.
Um, but me being my passion is my marketing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And my and me being authentic, I believe, is my marketing. And so for me, at that particular time, I was going to have to get a second job if I didn't start
Mm.
getting more clients. So I was genuine in, this is what I need to occur in
Mm.
order for me to be able to have a sustainable practice where I can keep, seeing you, my lovely client, and so it was true and from the heart. And sure, it had a sales advantage, but the
Yeah.
sale, the the middle part of it. Mm.
Mm. Mm. Look, and I totally understand that, and I'm 100% always for being authentic in everything that you do, because that is, if you can be a true reflection of who you are to your clients, then it's just a natural progression to attract more clients into your space. But if you try and emulate somebody else or what another practitioner is doing and model on them, it's never going to feel right, because that's not your uniqueness coming out in your messaging. And that congruency of who you're attracting is just not going to get out there either.
And people can smell it from a mile away.
Yeah.
And I think that when you're being authentic, you invite other people to be authentic. And
Yes.
there's kind of like a release of tension out of the body when a person gets to just be who they are and they don't have to put their masks on.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, there was something else I was going to say, but it just jumped out of my head to do with what you were just talking about then, in being authentic and that attraction that occurs. Anyway, it will come back.
It will. And I just wanted to say one point on that too, is that you're talking about that connection between you and your client and us being authentic and honest, it lightens the load, and you can feel something release from both sides, because it means that them as a client come into your space feeling that they can be 100% open and honest with you. And when I think we get to that stage, it's when the real healing occurs for them, because they're open to receiving as well.
I agree with you. And I remembered what I was going to say. And that is that, to other practitioners, health practitioners who are out there listening to this podcast, I just want to say to you, be really kind and compassionate to yourself for when you get pulled into the slipstream of thinking that you have to be the same as everybody else. Because, I've been in practice for over 2 decades now, and it still happens to me. And what I find really works for me is that I need some kind of business mentor support person, whether it be marketing, coaching, or whatever, to kind of help just keep me accountable to me. It really helps a lot.
Yeah.
So that I don't, go off and start, because we get marketed at all the time, right? We get all these messages all the time telling us who and what we need to be in order to succeed. And you have to be a robot to not be affected by that.
Exactly. Exactly. And you see it when you open up your social media of these amazing healthcare practitioners, making $1 million a month or whatever it is. And, it just feels like they're up there. And then you start comparing yourself and thinking, oh, what are you doing wrong? And so you start looking for that next shiny object to follow.
Right.
And that's when, yes, it's so important that you're able to stop. And sometimes, like you said, I do it with my clients. I ask them, is that part of your strategy to follow that pathway? Is it where you want to be headed? Is that
Yeah.
part of your vision that you have for your business? Because if it's not, then let's just let that go and stay
Yes.
on track with what you're doing and just be consistent in the chosen path that you've got, because it will work. You just need to
Yes.
sometimes give yourself the time as well.
Yes, the consistency 100% pays off. It's hard to believe it in the beginning, but
Yeah,
it really, really does. Yeah.
it does. Yeah. And it's playing the long game. Business is the long game.
Yeah.
I have had so many conversations with healthcare practitioners who, may be working, so maybe employed by other people and then thinking of branching out and doing their own thing. Um, and I always like to just remind people, when you're starting off, that don't expect it to be overnight where you're replacing and making that same salary that you were being employed immediately when you open the doors to your own business. But if you're consistent and keep following that path and being clear of what that vision is that you have, then each step is going to take you closer to achieving that.
Absolutely. And that's what happened for me. And now I have this business that, to be honest, is bigger than me. Sometimes it feels like it's bigger than me.
Yeah.
And that presents a whole other challenge in many ways. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you reflect back, Trina, on the last 26 years, if you could tell your younger version of yourself or give them one piece of advice looking back, what would that be?
Well, if I could maybe have a couple of pieces of advice.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, authenticity is key. You have a particular gift, and it can come through many different modalities, but staying true to your particular gift is really important. So stay connected with your own passion, and that will take you a long way. It will help you navigate that pathway of authenticity and, keep you accountable to it. I would also say charge higher prices than you think,
Mm,
because it's much harder to put your prices up than what it is to maybe offer a discount or offer, an introductory price or something like that.
yeah.
Because I started off with quite low prices, and then it was very hard to put that up because it kind of sets the tone.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're the two main things that pop to my mind.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Mm.
just touching on the pricing model, I think that that's such an important piece of advice, and it's a really practical piece of advice as well. When you're starting off, you don't realize how important that is, to get the pricing right. And I know that when I'm working with my clients with marketing, with their marketing strategy, and they're setting up their business, or even if they've been in business for a few years, is, do your homework,
Mm.
understand what the pricing is for the area that you're in, for the skills that you've got. And yes, charge what you're worth. And I know that that is so hard sometimes for us as healthcare practitioners to charge, because we think that we're just here to help people, but we can't help if we're not getting anything in return. And actually, our clients don't get the value from it either if there isn't a fair exchange to.
Well, they don't value it.
No.
And when they don't value it, it's very difficult to have functional, healthy boundaries with your clients. So it impacts every single aspect of your business more than you could ever imagine.
Yes.
It's so vitally important. I would also say don't get caught up in any ideas that somehow offering free sessions to people is going to help elevate your business. It doesn't. It just it every time I fell into that trap, it bit me on the bum, and it was a slap across the face lesson, and harsh lessons. And I
Yeah.
so I would offer that advice to myself as well, like that ability to really value what you do, and yeah, and charge appropriately is actually helps you hold a much more solid foundation of your business. I'm not talking about charging extraordinary prices. Personally, myself, I feel like healthcare should be affordable.
Yes.
Um however yeah however
Exactly. No, and I agree with you there as well. It does need to be affordable. However, we are living in a world where there's a price attached to everything. And coming back to clients valuing you, if your prices are too low, they will question even before they walk in the door and make that appointment. Why are your prices low? Is there something that you are not going to offer them? And they may not even pick up their phone and make that call. They may just go to somebody who is, in their mind, um, giving them more value.
That's right. And you actually want clients that do value what you're doing, because they're the kind of clients that will turn up consistently. They're the ones that won't cancel at the last moment. They're the ones that won't go, oh, yeah, I was going to come, but now I've got this lunch on and I probably can't come, and have you doing all this extra admin work that drives you crazy and sucks the oxygen of passion out of your business. So it's super important.
Yeah. And those are the types of clients, if you're attracting those ones that don't value themselves, don't value you and your time, then that's where I just see, practitioners burning out and feeling like this isn't the right path for them anymore. And like you said, you lose your passion, and that's never a good place to be in, because you know that you've got so much value to share with the world. So yes, it is important to have that there.
Mhm.
Um, Trina, thank you so much for everything that you've been sharing. But before we do wrap up, I wanted to ask you, I know you've shared a lot about what you would tell your younger self, but to our audience, as any last words of wisdom, is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
Uh, Look, I think that very similar to what I was just saying, that it's another component is to make sure that you're filling your own cup of self-worth by having a well-balanced life, so that you're not needing to excessively get your self-worth and your personal self-value out of having your clients have certain outcomes.
Mm,
Um,
that is, yeah,
mm,
such valuable insight, honestly. And I don't think that we stop to think about it from that way. So thank you.
my pleasure.
It's so easy for us to get wrapped up in tying our self-worth to our clients' outcomes. But you're right, it has to come from within and from everything else that makes our lives richer as well.
Yes, exactly. Because otherwise you become mixed up in a dysfunctional relationship with your client, and that becomes very difficult to sustain as well. So keep filling your own cup is what I would say, my final words.
Thank you, Trina. Thank you so much for just being open and honest and sharing your journey, and definitely allowing other practitioners to share in these insights that you've had.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
So until next week, Wednesday, I will see you then. Subscribe to the channel wherever you get your podcasts so that you get notified as soon as the next episode hits the podcast platforms. And this way you won't miss out. Remember, if you have gotten value from this podcast, I would love for you to leave us a review. Also, don't forget to share it with 2 to 3 friends or colleagues in your network who could also get value from this podcast episode. Until next week, my friends, happy marketing.